But Senator Leyonhjelm, back to the start of it though. I mean, you and I, we've talked about the nanny state plenty of times and all the rest of it here. And look, again, it's not an uplifting message for people as they go to bed on a Wednesday night. But do you see it as, being able to turn Australia around to reflect the way either it used to go or the things that you fight for, or are you a little closer to me that it's about managing the decline rather than being able to defeat the institutions?
Oh, it's not just Australia that's suffering this problem. America and the UK and much of Europe are suffering this crisis of identity of what do we believe in? Is every value of equal merit? Do balancing budgets, does balancing a budget really matter? Does it matter if the government wants to run your life? If my side of politics is running everybody's lives, then it's obviously got to be good. The only time I'll complain is if the other side of politics is running everybody's lives. This same debate that's occurring in Australia is also occurring in plenty of other places around the world. It's a problem. Some people say it's like the decline of the Roman Empire. We are eating our own future. That may be some truth to that.
Yeah, it's this thing. I mean, Senator Bernardi, you tweeted Peter's article and you said, you hope that we're not managing the decline here. Again, it's not me trying to say, hey, that's it, the sky's falling in. It's just my feeling is that while we can fight about the horse after it's bolted and we can talk about the things, when there's the education system the way it is, the institutions the way they are, the media, business, all the rest of it, I think a rather famous president referred to it as the swamp once. Do you think we're managing the decline, or can you actually drain the swamp?
Paul, there's no question we're in a decline, however you want to measure it, whether it be from, cost of living pressures or educational outcomes or work prospects or, social cohesion. And that's what's stuck with me. I thought that's what politicians are now doing. Let's minimise the damage whilst we're in power with no regard to the future. Because if they did have regard to the future, they wouldn't throw $25 billion at education with no outcomes in mind. They wouldn't, continue to clock up $40 or $50 billion deficits. And it really deeply concerns me. The left have this very strong hold, both even in the centre-right parties like the Liberal Party, whereby they're very good at tearing down institutions that have evolved, that conservatism has built over generations. And the left are very good at tearing them down, but they do not want to replace them with anything. They've got nothing to replace them with. And we need to keep those institutions in place if we want a civil society and if we want the maximum freedom. And I know that David wants the maximum freedom. I want maximum freedom for people. We have slight differences about how we should manage some of that. But ultimately, unless people are respectfully able to make decisions for themselves, good and bad, then we are only managing a slide into, some socialist disgrace that is going to end in terrible failure.
Well, but so it's this thing. I mean, Nicholas, we are all, hopeful about our fellow Australians, about the good spirit and volunteerism and all of the things that make us feel incredible about the place we were all lucky enough to be born in. But do you see it as a decline from another perspective where, the world is heading in one direction on climate change, but the knuckle draggers on the right and fat blokes on television are somehow a pair of concrete boots around the great leap forwards that this nation should be taking?
Well, I mean, look, maybe I'm an incorrigible optimist, but I reckon you guys sound like a bunch of misery guts. I think there's plenty out there for us to be optimistic about.
I like the sunshine too.
Hang on a second. Everyone's had a good go. Let me have a go on this. Let me bring a bit of happiness and sunshine to this conversation. I mean, on most measures of human happiness, we're moving forward, OK? Life expectancy is longer. People are living longer, healthier, more fulfilling, better educated lives. And that's a good thing. We're more prosperous than any point we've ever been in history. We don't get struck down by miserable, horrible, cruel diseases in the same way as we once did. I think of my own young kids. I look at how well I think they're being educated and all the great things they get, which, I can say I didn't have when I was a young kid growing up. And I think that's a good thing, that we're moving forward as a people. Yes, there's plenty to worry about. There's plenty of things like, yell at the TV screen like you all do when I'm watching the news, but overall, I think we're heading in the right direction.
All right. Can you know what you think about it, whether it's the right direction or not? By the way, latest Morgan poll, by the way, I think it's about 60-40. We're headed in the wrong direction. But anyway, that's just a poll. They don't matter, according to Christopher Pyne, of course. Unless, of course, you want to flip a Prime Minister. Then they really matter. Now, let's move on here to the debate about e-cigarettes. I can't believe that Greg Hunt earlier this week said that e-cigarettes, vaping, will not be legal under a government that I'm the health minister in. Fair dinkum. This is something that if you want to have tobacco in it, fine, fair enough, but the extreme majority of people who do vape do not have tobacco in those products whatsoever. They just get off on the plume. But we live in the nanny state. Here's what Tom Connell reported from Canberra today.
They're legal in Europe, the US and soon New Zealand, but as for Australia...
The Therapeutic Goods Authority knocked back an application to licence a product just in the last year.
That's because it said, unlike nicotine patches, vaping is not proven as a quitting aid and it could have other side effects.
Sometimes the downstream effects, the long-term effects of these products may not be visible for years, and we need to be very sure that we're not doing any harm.
Proponents say e-cigarettes can be the last chance to kick the habit, but it's a contested area.
I think the numbers are about 2/3 of people find they can either cut down substantially on their smoking or give it up entirely.
So, Senator Leyonhjelm, let's start with you here. I mean, the government has gone about as hard as you possibly can. You know, this doesn't happen under my watch. But what I find amazing is, you know, if you want to smoke pot in the ACT, you can do it. Nobody talks about the potential matters to do with what the long-term consequences will be about mental health, or the long-term consequences will be about inhaling that sort of smoke. But we can't even have a pilot scheme here in one part of Australia to say, OK, let's see how this goes. The hypocrisy is obvious and is happening now.
Yes, you're right. It's profound hypocrisy. And, you know, it's not just innocent hypocrisy. It'll cost lives. The thing is, when you smoke tobacco, you're inhaling something like 2,000 chemicals. And some of those chemicals are what cause lung cancer and emphysema and cardiac disease. When you just vape with nicotine, you're only getting nicotine, nothing else. And nicotine does not cause lung cancer or cardiovascular problems or emphysema. Now, people are going to die from those diseases because e-cigarettes are not available. And the thing is, in the countries where e-cigarettes are available, rates of smoking are going down. They're not going down in Australia any longer. The difference is e-cigarettes.
It's this thing, Nicholas. Again, I mean, surely if there are parts of the country where if you want to smoke pot, it's OK, but if you want to vape, it's not. It's not naturally occurring in either circumstance to have a smoking product around you here. It's about removing the crap from the nicotine, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, all the evidence that I've seen in this debate is that the vapes are less harmful than tobacco. And so I would sort of say, well, if tobacco is legal, then the vapes with the nicotine in it should be legal as well. And I guess I'd point to the United States and Europe where they are legal and say, well, why can't we have that in Australia? And if it's a pathway to getting people off the smokes, I'd say all the better.
But also it is this thing too, Peter, where, again, the selective invoking of other countries, right? So the very same people that would be against this will be the same people who say, well, in Oregon they have euthanasia and it works really, really well. In Mexico they have same-sex, you know, it's like, come on.
Yeah, or in France they have nuclear power, but those lefties won't let us have it, even a debate about nuclear power.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, I am not a smoker, but I support smokers' rights because why the Commonwealth is ripping money out of their pocket in the form of taxation and using it to fill budget hole after budget hole after budget hole. If it's legal, it should be legal and
Correct.
It can't be in this quasi land. I just want to say with vaping, you know, there's lots of different things you can vape. It's obviously not just nicotine, and I'd want to make sure for someone who doesn't want the passive smoke that I don't want any downside, you know, downstream effects from the vaping. But I tell you what, I'm probably safer with a vapor sitting next to me than I am a cigarette smoker.
Correct, or a cigar smoker everywhere.
I like the cigar.
There's a very important point there, isn't there? That like stacks of people at the moment are importing vapes with nicotine and buying it on the internet, and I would say that's a risky, you know, thing to be doing. Better to actually allow it and regulate it so you can at least get some controls around it, rather than people rolling the dice every time they buy it on the internet. So,
Senator Bernardi, why is the government so dead against it, so aggressive about it when, you know, a group of adults can have a reasonable discussion about this? Their position is, ain't happening.
It's because the bureaucrats are in charge, mate. Greg Hunt normally is actually pretty good at diffusing complex issues, and I recognise that in him. But, you know, when you talk about tobacco, there is an irrationality that comes along to it. You know, I once inquired about going to the UN Tobacco Conference, and of course it was met with outrage because they ban any media going or any observers going because it's like a cloistered groupthink session. Close to my office, there's a vaping store, so they're selling an illegal product openly, and I just can't see why this is banned at all. You know, if it's healthier, that's one argument, but if cigarettes are legal in this country, vaping should be legal too. So I think that's 4 from 4 out of your panellists today.
Well, I like it. All right, now a quick shout out, by the way, to Matt, who sent me an email, pmo@skynews.com.au. Why? Because his girlfriend Tiffany is being forced to watch the program. She hates it, but he loves it. So Tiffany, you're wrong, he's right. But when's that breaking news? Quick break, back with more. Plenty to talk about here on Paul Murray Live. Matt, you deal with that now.
Kia Sorrento is tuned for Australian conditions. It's been tested on the harshest of roads, from inner city to outback, so that ride and handling is second to none. Kia Sorrento, it's made for Australia.
The wrong home loan can keep your plans bottled up. But an HSBC home loan could set them free. 3.65% per annum could be the difference that makes the difference.
Getting your paws on the right colour can be overwhelming. So this October, Dulux can help you choose the right one, in store or online. Oh, timeless grey, my favourite.
A rental property can be a rewarding investment, but even with great tenants, there'll always be life's unavoidable accidents and uncertainties. Standard building insurance may not cover damage caused by tenants or loss of rent, leaving you out of pocket.
Terry Shear is Australia's leading landlord insurance specialist, with landlord insurance from $1 a day to protect your property and rental income.
Call Terry Shear today or go online.
Flight Centre's early bird sale is your ticket to the best Europe travel deals for 2018. No matter where you want to go, if you want to catch a low price, you've got to be early.
That's why we're best in the air.
And everywhere.
Vita-Wheat whole grains and flavour, together at last. New Vita-Wheat cracker chips. Whole grains and flavour, together at last. There is no substitute.
With the right planning, it's amazing what you can achieve in retirement. Be ready for next with Australia's largest provider of retirement solutions, Colonial First State.
You are going to absolutely love working here, Nathan. Everyone gets segways. It's in our ball pit. We've got our own ball pit. And we have beach meetings. It is the best place ever.
See company reviews. Real reviews by real employees.
At the Coffee Club, we've got bright ideas for breakfast, like Chunky Avo now on a potato rosti, and new ways to lighten up your lunch, like our bacon flat grill and chicken slaw salad from $10.95. Try our breakfast and lighter lunch range today. Where will I meet you?
Heavy eyes, tiredness, lack of concentration. Looks like a clear case of hot summeritis. Luckily, there's a cure. With the cool comfort of Fujitsu air conditioning, sleep will be restored. Simply get a ducted system with Fujitsu Cool Finance and pay no deposit and no interest for up to 5 years. Plus, get a bonus 2-year extended warranty, so you'll make hot summeritis a thing of the past. Fujitsu, Australia's favourite air.
Introducing the Remington Quick Shave Electric Shaver. The latest innovation in electric shaving, with ultra-precision dual-track blades to deliver a perfect shave in less time. Easy to clean and remarkably powerful for something that fits in the palm of your hand. The Remington Quick Shave Electric Shaver. The ideal shaver for a quick, close shave. Available only at Shaver Shop or online at shavershop.com.au.
It begins the moment we're born and continues through our lives. It's a desire to be heard, Because being heard has the power to influence others.
I have a dream.
At CPA Australia, we teach the skills necessary to stand out, because your ideas and your insights are what the world is waiting to hear. CPA Australia. Be heard. Be recognised.
Some stores mark up before they mark down. But at Freedom, we're dropping 5,000 prices for good. So no sales tricks, just new, lower prices every day. That's Price Drop at Freedom.
To Friday night, a Season 5 invite, and candlelight. To homemade tacos, BYOs, and happy Sunday arvos. Here's to you.
Now, back live with Paul Murray.
Thanks for watching. Great guests this evening. Now, if there is one bit of feedback this show receives, well, we receive 2 bits of feedback worse than anything else. 1, Paul swears too much. Okay, guilty. 2, Paul uses the term Sheila too much. Perfect example is an email that I got in the past few minutes. Oh, you put me in the photo. Thank you, super producer. Please don't use the word Sheila when referring to women. It's offensive, degrading, outdated, and not in line with your claims of equality. I really enjoy your discussions, but please, says Pamela. So before we get to the Sheila, let's ask the blokes. Nicholas, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to stop using the term, so like it or lump it, sorry Pamela, but it's only ever meant as affection, the same way it's, you know, blokes and Darl and buddy and pal. It's all pretty obvious. If you said Sheila in your house, what would the reaction be?
Look, it probably wouldn't go down so well, I would suggest. So I don't have a problem with you saying Sheila, Paul, but it's a term I don't use because I just feel it's got an edge to it that's a bit derogatory towards the women in a way which, and I can't give you a scientific explanation of this, you know, the word bloke doesn't have the same connotation to it, I think, as Sheila. I just think it's a little derogatory.
Okay, see, it's never intended as that. I love me ladies, I really do, and a deliberate use of grammar there. Senator Bernardi, we've talked about Sheila before, but I'll ask you again for Pamela's edification.
Mate, I learned my lesson in grade 3 at school. My parents had a couple of friends. One was named Sheila. I wrote a weekend narrative, what happened at your weekend. I said, oh, Sheila and Vaughan came over. And back in the days when it was Miss and Mrs., I had a Ms for a teacher, and she took me aside and gave me a detention. So it's never been customary to use the term since.
Fair enough. David, what about you?
Well, look, I'm guilty of using all kinds of words, as I'm kind of a bit famous for it. And I think Sheila is fine. Not long ago, I got into trouble for calling women chicks, and I got a bit of abuse for my trouble. And I went home and asked my wife, you know, what do you think about being called a chick? She said, I'd be totally flattered if someone called me a chick. So obviously, you know, horses for courses.
Now, so Peter, you get to decide this issue.
Is the Sheila on the panel? Yeah, well, I think Sheila's equivalent with bloke, and I'm very comfortable with calling a bloke, and I'm very comfortable with calling a Sheila. I think it's a bit old-fashioned, not in a pejorative way. It's just I don't think we use it like we'd use chick or anything else. But I still call people old mate, whether they're male or female, and I still call a radio a wireless. So maybe I'm not your target market.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, you know, I lovingly use a bit of the old school. That's my thing. You know, lovingly, you know, unsurprisingly, the bloke who owns the 1983 Commodore SLE is probably going to talk like the bloke who owns a 1983 Commodore SLE. Surprise, surprise. Tomorrow, by the way, we'll have a big chat about the closing down of Holden in South Australia and, of course, Australia. But incredible effort that was there from all of those people, part of the Dream Ride, by the way, on Sunday. I wish I was in Adelaide to have the chance to have a look at it, but we'll celebrate the end. Well, it's a difficult thing to say, but to celebrate the end of manufacturing of cars in Australia tomorrow night. We're not going to talk about... Yeah, commemorate. We're not going to talk about subsidies. That's Xenophon's territory, right? We'll let him get into all of that. Now, let's quickly get back to power, because I want to see what the senators have to say about what's happened so far in this debate thus far. Now, once again, I find it ridiculous that Bill Shorten's out there holding up 50-cent pieces when he is going to have an ETS and he is going to have 50-50 renewables. He will put your power bill up. Now, sure, the government will keep your power bill going up for the next 9 quarters, but the promise is that it starts coming down. Not by enough, but it starts coming down. So once again, here's your alternative Prime Minister, you know, the one other than Julie Bishop.
The best case scenario that Turnbull is promising the people of Australia is he's promising to give them 50 cents a week back on their power bills at the earliest in 2020. It is a joke of a policy from an out-of-touch Malcolm Turnbull that what he thinks is a good energy policy is giving people a 50-cent reduction per week in their power bills in 3 years' time.
Senator Bernardi, we'll start with you. Firstly, the Labor Party position, and then secondly, and I know it's a big secondly here, what do you think of this early analysis about this idea? Peter says absolutely, Minister says no, Nicholas Rees says, yeah, probably, that there's a backdoor carbon tax here.
No. And
Sorry,
a backdoor emissions trading scheme because there's a secondary
Semantics matter.
It is.
No, I get it. I'm sorry. I was just being quick with my words. Go for it, Senator.
First point, I bet you Bill Shorten borrowed that 50 cents from someone else. But secondly, look, there are things at work here that I think are smoke and mirrors. They brought in that tractor tax, as I call it, the new emissions schemes a few weeks ago. They put up the regulations on leaf blowers and stuff. The minister today, Birmingham, suggested and made inferences that they were going to extend that to motor vehicles as well. It was only in December last year that Josh Frydenberg belled the cat and said that the emissions scheme was going to come in and a clean energy target. They don't have any credibility in this space at all. I support the abolition of the renewable energy target from 2020. They should do it now because it's still going to go up by 50% effectively in the next few years. But they have zero credibility. And if they want credibility in this space, they need to walk away from any policy in regard to energy and provide certainty for market players to enter, build new entities, build new generators, whether they're gas, coal, nuclear, thorium, whatever they want, give them certainty, but provide baseload power for us.
Senator Leyonhjelm, this was supposedly a game changer. What sort of a game, if any, does it actually change?
I don't think it's going to allow them to win back votes at all. This issue of power prices and the risk of blackouts in the summertime is a white-hot issue in the electorate. And frankly, unless power prices start to fall, I can't see how the Libs can hang on. And then the sad thing is, I don't think Labor even gets the idea of how big an issue the power price issue is in the electorate, and they've got no plan to do anything even equivalent to what the Libs want to do. This is crazy. Both sides of politics are just totally out of touch with the electorate. I think it's nuts. We're going to have these renewable energy certificates at around about $80 a megawatt hour, still being paid to these wind turbines for the foreseable future. And, it's still a subsidy. It's still a subsidy.
Till after the next election.
They're saying, oh, there won't be any subsidy.
Yeah. This is the thing. You want to talk about a fix. It's literally after the next election. Peter, again,
exactly.
we could do it all night. We could do it for hours on end. But one part I wanted to specifically hone in on. Regulation is the tool by which a lot of this is going to take place in the next little while. Now, that means, unlike a piece of legislation that has the messy together, then the big fight going through. Regulation is exactly what the Parliament has empowered, and Corey's talked about before, about leaf blowers and all the rest of it. It's these slow little upticks that nobody really notices until eventually, you're the frog in the pot.
Absolutely, and as Corey and Senator Leyonhjelm will know well, I mean, unless particular senators pick up on the the regulation made and seek, if it is a disallowable regulation, seek to disallow it, 99% of that regulation slips through to the keeper because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of pages made every week by bureaucrats. It's not. Some of them are signed off by ministers, but some of them are truly delegated legislation. What worries me about this framework, there are good elements. Getting rid of the subsidies, absolutely. Putting in a baseload benchmark into the system is very important. Dropping the clean energy target is good. But it's the public push and the push by Conservatives like Corey, like Tony Abbott, like George Christensen and others who have got them to where they are now. And this is a half-perfect model. It's still an emissions reduction model. And I think the politics of it are very troubling for the government. I'll tell you why, and I'll be quick on this point though. This is all about fixing Newspoll.
Of course.
And let's see where we are at the end of the year, whether it fixes Newspoll. But they haven't thought it through.
It doesn't fix it in 2 weeks.
Well, they haven't thought it through, because any of the supposed benefit happens after the next election. So people will bank this as a win and now expect the bills to be going down. They will not go down. They'll go to the next election and they'll weigh up where Malcolm Turnbull is, or have a hot summer and lose their power and blame Malcolm Turnbull. He's not provided his backbench with a system that they can support that will get them through these troubling polls.
Yeah, all right, I'll warn you lads, the mic's alive. Now, I'll ask you here too, Nicholas, here about the politics around some of this here, which is, OK, I get the politics of the Libs, which is to say, when we're going into an election, he's going to put it up, we're going to put it down, we've already set this thing in place. But what about this concept about regulation, about the fact that once you cede it to the bureaucracy or the minister, not the parliament, to make big decisions like this, is it one of those things where there's a little tick up here and there?
Yeah, I mean, I know you and Senator Leyonhjelm hate the nanny state. Sadly for you, though, most Australians actually love the nanny state. They hate the concept of the nanny state, but when it comes to be applied through more regulation in individual instances, they usually strongly support it. And I think that, you know, the idea of a bit more regulation in this area will be supported. I agree with you. I think there are risks here for the government, but if you look in other areas, for example, where the Reserve Bank of Australia took over the management of monetary policy in this country, I think most people would now almost universally, you'd say that's been a good thing for the country.
All right. Can you know what you think at any time? In a moment's time, we'll have a chat about what's in the papers tomorrow. There's plenty of other things to fire up about with the great panel this evening, so don't muck around, don't go anywhere. Well, you're not going to. It's late at night. What else are you going to do? You can go to the toilet tomorrow. Hold on a sec.
Kia Sorento is tuned for Australian conditions. It's been tested on the harshest of roads, from inner city to outback, so that ride and handling is second to none. Kia Sorento, it's made for Australia.
Small messes can be big problems, and using a traditional broom and dustpan is a back-breaking chore. Well, not anymore. Now from the makers of our best-selling Hurricane Spin Mop comes the all-new Spin Broom, the cordless, lightweight spinning broom that cleans up this mess, that mess, almost any mess with ease. Now cleaning up after the kids is a breeze, whether it's broken chips or smashed snacks. It will even pick up a whole broken glass, keeping your family safe. The secret is the triple brush technology that rotates with cyclonic action, pulling in everything in its path. Our one-touch large capacity dustpan is built in and empties in seconds. Hurricane Spin Broom side sweepers pull in dust and dirt like a street sweeper. A must near skirting boards without scratching. Its swivel steering combined with its lay flat handle lets you hunt down messes, even under tight furniture. When you order today, we'll send you not one, but 2 Hurricane Spin Brooms. Call or go online to take advantage of this special buy one, get one free offer now.
Yesterday, this sofa was 50% too expensive. And how is this possible? Honestly, this guy's been closing down for 20 years. And what happens if you only want one? Look, a pony, a drone. A pony and a drone? At Freedom, we're dropping 5,000 prices for good. So no sales tricks. Just new, lower prices every day. That's Price Drop at Freedom.
GT Sport. PS4 for the players.
To Friday night, a Season 5 invite and candlelight. To homemade tacos, BYOs and happy Sunday arvos. Here's to you.
The bad news is the property boom might be over. The good news is the stock market's outperformed property and any other asset classes over the past 90 years. Hi, I'm Michael Kodari, and I want to empower you to build wealth with a concrete investment strategy. In January 2014, I sent my 6 exclusive stock picks to the Business Channel. In March 2016, I appeared on TV to announce they had averaged over 93%, outperforming the market more than 95% within the same time period. To start building wealth today, go to cosec.com.au and get your free report featuring our 6 stock picks for the new financial year. If you want your money working overtime, you need to know what stocks to buy and when to sell. That's where COSEC can help. With no entry barriers and no stamp duty, it's just simple investing. Download your free report at cosec.com.au today.
Without mine, I wouldn't be doing this on the weekend.
Without mine, I'd be sitting to stand south.
Without mine, I wouldn't be able to do this with my son.
Physiotherapists don't just help you recover, they help us get the most out of life. That's why GPs recommend more patients to physiotherapists than any other health professionals. Go to choose.physio.
This month on Foxtel Movies, we've got something for everyone.
It's time to be a patriot.
This is witchcraft, don't you see?
Do you trust me?
You're exactly the kind of hero the world needs. We believe your wife is a spy. Family, baby!
It's all included in the Foxtel Movies pack.
Now, back live with Paul Murray.
Thank you very much. Well, how could we get any more content into this show? We're finding a way, and the great Chris Kenny's going to help us here with Heads Up in about 10 minutes from now. Great man.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to squeeze onto your panel. Yeah.
Hey, you're welcome here any time. Just wander in.
I love it. My favourite show, after Heads Up, of course.
That's what Peter says, yes. All right, yeah.
Let's have a quick look at what's in the papers tonight. I want to have a look at the Australian first up. Across the top, this is big news across the country because it shows you how badly the major parties are on the nose. Corey Bernardi will be into this too. Nick Xenophon, latest polling, just smashing it in South Australia. The election there, state election up in March. Nick Xenophon, preferred Premier by double the amount of the existing Premier or the opposition leader.
But of course, the mathematical problem here is, what, there's 47 seats in the House. He's only running 20. He can't be the Premier.
No, he's not going to be Premier, but he's also out-polling Labor on the party vote and only 1 point behind the Liberals. Wow. So the point is he's smashing it, and that just gives you an idea of where the major parties are at the moment.
Is there polling for Australian Conservatives? There's a senator who may want to know.
Yeah, he might want to know about that. We haven't got you registered there, Corey.
Oh, hang on. We'll get into that in a moment.
But you'll be tapping into exactly the same sort of concerns, I would have thought. Let's have a look at the Sydney Morning Herald as well. This is onto the big national issue, the energy market. Mark Kenny there telling us that he thinks Labor are positioning themselves to back Malcolm Turnbull's plan. Oh, well, where does he go then? How bad is it looking then?
Unbelievable.
2.0.
Unbelievable. Now, by the way, before we get to Corey here, before you go, Chris, can we just run through a wonderful moment of watching before our very eyes the Prime Minister breaking up with Fairfax? This is what happened today. There was a big event today for women in Parliament, right? Lots of teenage girls there. Great. Awesome, right? But here we go. One of their reporters tweets this. It's a shame no government MP participated in this program, which has girls shadowing MPs for the day. Mark Kenny, the man, you know, bad Kenny. He's the one who turned around and he wrote this. Pretty poor effort, most disappointing. Prime Minister's office, bang. If you'd bothered to check, you would know that in fact we are participating and the PM is hosting the group this afternoon. Bad Kenny. I stand corrected, suitably admonished, apologies. And then, here's the piece de resistance. The Prime Minister's office. Here is a photo of the Prime Minister meeting the very girls today. So what started off as a shit-canning ends up with a photo of him meeting the very people that they are shit-canning him for not meeting.
And they say the media's got no power. A breakout in the Lovey camp.
Yeah, all right, God love it. That's good Kenny, Chris Kenny. In a moment or two's time, sorry to cause trouble at home, mate. There's plenty to fire up about. Let's do that now. Senator Corey Bernardi, Senator David Leyonhjelm, Peter Credlin and Nicholas Rees. So I've got to ask your reaction to this, well, I've got to say, nonsense polling here, where the preferred Premier is the bloke, Corey, who isn't actually running in enough seats to form a damn government.
Well, yeah, that might change.
Yeah. Well, OK, yet, at this moment.
Paul, unfortunately, it's not nonsense polling. Jay Weatherall and the Labor government are duds, but unfortunately, Stephen Marshall and the Liberal opposition haven't set the world on fire and that's been very charitable.
Yeah,
Nick Xenophon is a phenomenon. I can't explain it, quite frankly. It is a marketing exercise because I just don't think he's got the answers that the state or the country needs, and his time in federal parliament has been characterised by extracting billions of dollars of borrowed money to prop up programs that no one really remembers or has benefited from, and I don't think that's actually quite healthy. But nonetheless, it is what it is, and he has changed the political landscape in South Australia, and people are desperate for an alternative.
But the pointy question I've got to ask you, though, is that if they're not polling Australian Conservatives that has 2 MPs in the South Australian Senate, it's your home Senate, it's your home state, it's apparently a place where you've got plenty of members. Is there a phenomena happening here that people aren't reporting, or is there a concern for you that you're not showing up when compared to the PR machine and the existing parties?
We don't compete with Labor, Liberal or the Xenophon phenomenon, but where they do have polled us, we've been, I think, 3% in the seat where Hartley, where Xenophon was running. But we just don't have much brand awareness. We're just doing everything we possibly can. But our mission is to, get Rob Brokenshire re-elected. I think we can do that, and I think, in the sanctity of the ballot box, when people are asked what outcomes they want the check and balance of a decent, conservative, principled option in the upper house.
I agree completely. All right, Senator Leyonhjelm, before we go, I want to talk about, a push, and I think it's a fair one, that the people who run our universities get paid way too much cash. Unsurprisingly, these people get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, taxpayers' money, all the rest of it. But the Education Minister, of course, will always side with the unis rather than those that actually pay for them, has had this to say, which is Vice-Chancellor salaries have attracted a lot of attention in recent months because Australians understand they foot the bill for around 58% of universities' revenue on average. Yawn, yawn, yawn. University autonomy is a key feature of the Australian higher education system, but autonomy should not mean that universities can ignore social licence taxpayers give them to operate. Waffle, waffle, waffle. Why do these people get paid too much money? And Nick, your response after that?
Yeah, I don't know why they get paid that much money. It's a failure of governance, quite frankly. They compare each other, they benchmark each other, benchmark themselves against each other, and just ratchet up the salaries. But I mean, the thing is, in the private sector, if you're not paying your chief executive enough money and they're a good chief executive, another company will come along and steal them away. And that's what headhunters get paid the big bucks for. There's no such market in this university space, and those vice-chancellors getting paid $1 million salaries or close to it, they'd never get anything like that in the private sector. They're not up to that sort of job. I don't understand why they think they're worth that much money.
All right, Nicholas, I've got less than a minute here, mate. Don't use it all up because I want Peter to have a final say on this.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, I know quite a few Vice-Chancellors and they're exceptional people. They're running absolutely massive organisations and they're also educating our children, and they're also running Australia's 3rd biggest export industry worth $28 billion, ranking only behind iron ore and coal as an export earner. And I think if you compare their salaries to CEOs, you'll find that they're actually quite a long way behind. It's quite bizarre hearing this argument from David. I thought he was a deregulator, but here he is wanting to regulate VC salaries. Why does he stop there? Why doesn't he want to regulate lawyers' salaries or doctors' salaries or engineers' salaries? They're all graduates of universities. I mean, look, better...
We pay for the universities.
The problem here is not higher salaries, it's actually about the tax rates. Why don't we just introduce a higher tax rate on these higher earners, and then we can use the money to build better schools, hospitals and universities.
Hang on. With less than 30 seconds to go, you're introducing a new top marginal tax rate. We will talk about that next week.
We will talk about that next week, absolutely, Nick. I think the reason why the taxpayer has a stake in this, that there's 58% of university funding comes from the taxpayer. That's why it's relevant. I am, though, however, not inclined always to say just because someone earns a lot of money, they shouldn't earn that money. I don't have any sort of wage envy with anybody else. Good luck to them. But when 60 basically, 58% of their money comes from the taxpayer.
Correct.
For the average salary, 900K, that's double the Prime Minister. It doesn't stack up.
All right, for more on this, you go to David's Facebook page, Twitter and all the rest of it with the Liberal Democrats. If you want some sanity on the crossbench in South Australia, you're voting for Australian Conservatives. If you want to find out whether or not we should raise the voting age for the Australian population, you're watching Politics HQ. And if, like me, you know that Peter Credlin is far smarter than you will ever be, keep watching this lady and read her stuff in the paper on the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow for more Paul Murray Live.